Let's now turn to Nigeria, where Ogoni activists in the country's Delta region have rejected the posthumous pardon granted by President Tinubu to the late environmental activist Zina Saro-Wiwa and 8 of his companions last week. The campaigners, known as the Ogoni Nine, were executed 30 years ago by the then military government of Sani Abacha. In the 1990s, Saro-Wiwa, the founder of the Movement for the Survival of the Ogoni People, denounced the devastation caused by oil production in the Niger Delta, which is home to the Ogoni ethnic group. Saro-Wiwa led the Ogoni people in peaceful demonstrations against oil companies, particularly the multinational Shell. Now, in 1995, the activists were hanged after being tried by a military court. They'd been found guilty by a secret military tribunal of the murder of 4 Ogoni chiefs, but many condemned the executions as extrajudicial murder. At the time, their deaths caused a worldwide shock. Many believe that the activists were punished for their protests against the activities of multinational oil companies. Shell has long denied any involvement in these executions. 3 decades later, although the pardons granted by President Tinubu have been welcomed, some activists and relatives feel that they do not go far enough. Earlier, I spoke to Zina Saro-Wiwa, the daughter of the late Ken.
Well, first of all, I want to say that we appreciate the conferment of the Commander of the Order of the Niger onto my father, which is an honour, and we're happy to receive that. But I think it's really important that we move decisively towards an exoneration, because a pardon doesn't cut it. My father was innocent, as were the men that were hanged alongside him. They merely fought for the rights of the Ogoni people and our environment. And so an exoneration is what we should be moving towards on this 30th anniversary. I think it's a timely moment for that to happen. And so that's where we would like to get to. And I believe that Amnesty join us in that call for a full exoneration.
I'm keen to hear more on how you interpret this gesture by the Nigerian presidency. Do you see it as a genuine act of reconciliation? Is that how your family views it, or rather a strategic political move?
I mean, I would say that President Tinubu, he was part of the struggle against the pro-democracy struggle against the military regime. So I would like to think that he understands where we're coming from, and that this is a gesture, absolutely, especially with the commander of the Order of the Niger. I think that's to mark a sense of respect as well. So I do think that there is something genuine behind it. I think that that there are other processes that need to take place, that we encourage them to begin immediately, to begin the process of exoneration. So I think that's what I have to say about that.
Okay. What's the state today of the land that your father was trying to protect?
In terms of the land and the cleanup, which is a major issue, it's a bit premature to conclude what's going on. You have to watch HIPREP, which is the agency which is tasked with organising the cleanup. And I know that there have been issues and they've been extraordinarily slow, and there's been a lack of accountability and transparency. So it makes it very difficult to try and understand exactly where the problems are persisting in very strong ways. But what I will say is that for myself, I've moved back here to the Niger Delta, and I've been working in the Niger Delta as an artist for the last 12 years, researching mostly our sort of cultural heritage and also our culinary and agricultural heritage, and finding that there's so much potential and that there's so much that is still alive and vibrant. And I think that keying into those things and plugging an alternative identity that is about soil and not oil, I think that is the way forward and where that we can go. And I think energy and resources can be put into the cultural, into the agricultural, because it's such an important agricultural region, and that's the really the tragedy of what had happened. This idea of oil taking over the identity, when we've always been a place where the best food has come from, the best fish. It's a fecund, fertile, incredible region with a big cultural heritage. You'll find Ogoni masks all over the world in all the encyclopedic museums, not necessarily stolen either, but in encyclopedic museums around the world. In America, in Europe, in the UK, you will find Ogoni masks. We are present. And so I think that there's a lot of work to do, not just in cleanup, not just politically, but also culturally and in terms of agriculture. There's a long way for us to go, and I think that there's a sense of renewal that is absolutely possible. But I think that there's a stagnation, and there isn't a vision for where the Niger Delta really can go. It's sort of mired in politics. It's mired in the trauma of what happened.
And if you don't mind me asking on a more personal note, what have the last 30 years been like for you and your family? I imagine it's been tough.
It's been extraordinarily tough. I think people don't really understand what it means to have the head of your family killed in that way, but also the added complications that one of the people that was killed was a relative, an uncle, my mother's brother-in-law, and so our cousins lost their father. So that was a very difficult, traumatic moment. And I think that also with the deaths of many members of my family as well, my brothers and one of his sons, it's been really a very difficult thing to take on board. And I think that people have assumed that the families, our family, but also the other families, have received a lot of compensation. That hasn't happened. It hasn't been the way, but we've mostly been quiet, trying to keep our heads together and our families together in many ways, and doing what we can just to stay alive and enjoy life and attend to the issues that need to be attended to. But I do think that there is this sense that, it's been a political football in a way for people to use, but those of us who have suffered personally from it have never really used it in that way, benefited from it in any way, not that we want to, but it's been a very difficult thing to watch.
While you're watching Focus on Africa.